Can you guys introduce mommy?
Spill the beans with Dr. Jill.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Spill the Beans with Dr. Jill. Something different. This is our season finale, and I have two guests with us, which we haven't done before. I think it's going to be amazing. Who would like to introduce themselves first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Hi, Jill. Thanks for having me. My name is Frank LaDore. I work at Southern Connecticut State University. I am in the development office. I do fundraising for scholarships and things like that. But I've been at Southern for over 35 years. And in that time, I actually got involved in teaching a class called Death, Dying, and Bereavement. Um, and I had a mentor named Rose Catella who passed away. And when she passed away, I took over the class. And that class was not about death, it was about life.
Mm.
And we had many speakers come in and talking about their experiences and talking about what they went through and talking about grief. And it was wasn't really academically challenging, but it was really deep. And so you reached out to me to chat a little bit about some stuff today, and I really appreciate it. And thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you, Frank. Kelly, can you introduce yourself to everyone?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kelly Thibault, and I also work at Southern Connecticut State University and did take Rose Tratella's class. Um, I've been with the university for 27 years, and I do the finances here for the residence life department. And I am a grief coach. So I'm well versed in the grief process.
Thank you, guys. So, this season has been dedicated to the helping profession in the medical industry. So, I've had doctors, nurses, EMTs, you name it, I had them come on. And I first asked them what they knew about vicarious trauma. Many of them were never taught formally in their medical practice what vicarious trauma is. So before you started taking, teaching your classes and before you became a grief coach, did anyone ever talk to you about the secondary trauma known as vicarious trauma that you will get from helping others? Did anyone ever teach you that?
Hell, you might have learned it in some of your training in grief counseling because I'm not a grief counselor, but no one's ever told me about that.
Yeah, Kelly, did you get?
And the only reason I'm familiar is because I've attended your seminar, so I am familiar with
Yeah.
vicarious trauma.
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, I've met with numerous social workers and they're like, it's always about the client. It's always about the patient. It's always about the student. It's not about the practitioner. So then I asked them, well, did anyone teach you about self-care or talk to you about self-care? And then that's normally when they warm up a little bit. So did anyone ever talk to you about if you're going to be in grief work, you're going to have to do a lot of self-care?
That I'm more familiar with, yes.
Yeah. What do
Yeah.
you do, Frank? Is there themes that have worked for you over the years?
In terms of personally or telling people how to.
Both. I mean, what are you telling the students if you're going to be dealing with grief? This is how you should self-care. And then what do you do?
Yeah, so I one of the things that I tell my students is that it never goes away. It
Mm,
gets smaller and smaller and smaller, but it never goes away. So, um, and I say grief is good. Um, Grief is a good thing. Death sucks, but grief is good, and that's part of one of my presentations. So, what I tell them to do is never forget and
mm,
don't bury it. Keep those stories alive, keep the pictures. And what I actually do personally is I talk to my loved ones who have gone. Because I believe, and you had mentioned something before you start recording, that once they're gone, you can't talk to them, and I'm gonna disagree with that because I do talk to them,
yeah.
uh, and I believe, and it's not religious, it's a higher power type thing. I believe that they never really leave us in some way, shape, or form. They're always with us. So, and I try to send that home to those who are grieving, that they're there, and look for the signs and look for that those special moments.
Kelly, what about you for self-care?
Um, I echo Frank and what he says. You have to, it is grief, it's going to be grief. You loved, so you're going to grieve. There's just no simple way to go about it. And it is a process and it does take time. And as Frank said, it gets smaller, but it never goes away. Um, Self-care, I you have to remember to be kind to yourself. This is a very, very trying time.
Mhm.
And when someone first passes away, as you know, everybody's around you. You are consumed with, the formalities of the death process. And um, then they go away, and then
Mhm.
you're left on your own.
Yeah.
And that's when the trying time comes in, and being kind to yourself, taking time for yourself, not going back to work right away. A lot of
Mhm.
people try to like go back to a normal routine every day, but just giving yourself some time to breathe, some time to be, and take care of yourself.
Yeah, I love that you're sharing that. I mean, we've had other guests have been, someone from the mortuary science program, and they said, no one ever talked to me about vicarious trauma, but someone did tell me, a professor once, that if I don't take care of myself, I will have a case that will just resonate with me. And not every day, but every now and again, somebody will come through and it will be difficult. And I need to recognize that and not pretend like I'm a robot. And I really felt like that was a really good perspective to think about. The other thing that I try to tell people is, if you're in a helping profession and you deny your vicarious trauma, it's like denying that you're grieving when someone that you love passes. Have either of you seen what the negative effects can be for someone who's denying the grief process?
Yeah, absolutely. I used to have in my class, I used to have a state trooper come in and speak. You talk about vicarious trauma. He would
Oh,
deal
yeah.
with death, on a weekly basis, and he would say, he goes, I'm numb to it. He goes, unless it's a child, because he had kids.
Mm,
So
yeah.
when it's a child, he would, like, he would say that it was the hardest thing in the world. But I come here, people are decapitated, people are this or that, and he goes, I just tried to deal with it. I didn't deal with it. I just became numb.
Yeah.
Um, that builds up, and that, kind of like, he was also in the military, kind of like being in the military, where you deny what happened, you deny what happened, and it can come out in different forms: alcoholism, shutting down. He didn't have those effects, but he's talked about other officers in his field that they just they lose themselves
Yeah.
because they don't deal with it. And there's no social workers for police officers to deal with that. There are, but
Yeah.
a lot in that field, a lot of them are very proud and
Mm-hmm.
they can
Yeah.
handle.
And there's so many people that we talk to where their identities, if they've been in the helping profession, they've been numerous helping professions, right? So they're like, I've seen it all and nothing can surprise me. But that is the negative way of managing vicarious trauma, right?
Right.
Kelly, have you seen any negative insight of like holding in the grief and not processing it?
Firsthand, when I went through my personal tragedies, I sort of shut it off and didn't deal with it. And that's why I became a grief coach, because it's very important that people don't shut down. It can
Mm-hmm.
lead to depression,
Mm-hmm.
insomnia. It can, either overeating or not eating.
Yep.
It really, it can transform into unhealthy practices.
Right.
So that's why it's important to seek out support. If you are shut down, to seek out support and, therapy or whatever, is your preference, and go through the grief process healthy. You don't want to be sick. You don't want to get sick from this, because you can get sick from grief.
Right. Um, you can have two people who have gone through hearing the same narrative of trauma, and those two therapists will walk away and need two different prescriptions of what to do, right? Like one person might need silence, another person needs to activate and do kickboxing, right? So it's very much specific to the person, right? And I'm assuming, tell me if I'm wrong, that like when siblings grieve the same parents, it's gonna look different in them, right?
100%.
And the first thing I think is knowing yourself,
Right.
right? And then using your community to uplift you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to your point about siblings grieving differently, as you know, I lost my parents at a very young age. And we found out when my mom passed away, my second parent died. The three of us went, we were 3 years apart, 10, 12, and 15, and hugged and started crying. One of my brothers went into the room, closed the door, right? Silence. The two of us went and hugged my brother and started crying. Years later, I found out my younger brother, he goes, "No, I didn't cry." He goes, "I didn't know what happened. I was in denial." So that trauma, I just assumed he cried. I cried.
Right.
I'm the sensitive one, right? So, but yeah, everybody deals with it differently. It's funny you say, it, especially with siblings. Um,
Yeah.
how
And
that
the
happens.
correlation that I try to teach people in the workforce is when you're a supervisor and you're dealing with a staff who have experienced something, every staff member is going to need something different and respond differently, right? There's just so
Hmm.
many similarities between the grieving process and vicarious trauma. And I know that there is a lot of people think burnout, it just happens overnight. And I'm like, there's a crescendo. There's so many warning signs. And I think that that's similar in the grieving process, right? Like, it's not like one day all of a sudden you become depressed.
Right, right,
No, and to expand on what Frank was saying about losing his parents when he was young, there was a suicide in my family and an untimely death, which was just as shocking as losing your parents. And so I can relate to that.
Hmm.
And I think that was why I shut down because it was just so shocking and you didn't have time to absorb it to be able to have a proper response, or not a proper, there's no proper way or,
right.
but just that a response that you would think that you would have.
Yeah.
It's interesting, Jill, because I never thought of it this way, but Kubler-Ross has the stages of death, denial, anger, the whole thing. Um, I believe it's more of a spiral. It's not stages.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
wonder if, and no one really talks about that through vicarious trauma. Like,
Right.
what are the stages for a first responder or a doctor who loses a patient? And you're just making me think out loud. Like,
Yeah.
they don't, do they go through a denial phase, or denial phase is like, well, this is my friend, my job. I deal with it every day.
It's a
It is what
job. Yes.
yeah, and
Yes.
eventually they're going to get angry about something, and eventually
Hmm.
depressed. So yeah, that's a
And
whole other
it's,
study you could probably do, right, Jill?
yeah, and I think I appreciate the two of you being transparent with your lived experiences with grief and losing someone at younger ages or pivotal ages, because the thing with vicarious trauma is it changes who you are as a person. So if you are a police officer, or if you're a lawyer, if you know any social worker, therapist, you name it, if you're in the helping profession and you've been doing it for so many years, you will change how you see the world. You will change how you see yourself in the world, how you parent. Every police officer I've ever gone out to dinner with has to sit watching the exit door. They have to be in control of that because that has been a learned mechanism that provides them safety. I'm not
Right,
going to challenge that because that's what makes them feel safe. And that's through vicarious trauma. And it's similar because if you don't acknowledge, I am evolving, then you're shutting off part of who you were meant to be, right?
right, right.
It's very interesting, but I do want listeners to know that not only is there a community of like, if you're grieving and you need to talk to someone, there's practitioners like yourselves, whether you're doing the coaching or you're teaching, but I also want to give some like best practice. So, every episode I end with like, if you had to spill the beans on this topic, what would you tell people? Do either of you have like a quote, a mantra, something that you want everyone to know as we end this conversation? Who wants to go first?
It's you, Cal.
Okay, I'll go. I'll
Okay.
go. Mine is one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Wayne Dyer. And it goes, once you change the way you're looking at things,
Mhm.
the things you're looking at begin to change.
Ooh,
Yes. And so I think through the grief coaching, that's what I do, is hopefully change the way people are looking at it
yeah.
and helping them through it. And so that's my quote that I live by.
Thanks, Cal.
I should
You're
have went
welcome.
first because that's a tough one to follow.
Oh,
No, no, that's great. Yeah, I mentioned earlier that I truly believe that they never really leave you.
Mhm.
And I don't want to sound. I never say this in a. You would never say this in grief counseling, and I don't say it in my class that things happen for a reason. But if my parents don't die at a young age, I'm not where I am today. I don't have the children I have today. Um, and we wake up every morning, and we have to remember them, we have to love them, and we have to go from there.
Right. Oh, well, I appreciate you both. And I think we're going to end season 2 there and hope that everyone listening feels like this has been a nice culmination. I know Frank and Kelly are having this conversation with me as they're working and serving others. And, it just leads me into season 3 of Spill the Beans is going to be dedicated to educators. So that's hot off the press. Don't know when we're going to start season 3, but I thank these 2 educators who are also doing grief work and supporting the helping profession. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
thank you.
Yep.
Bye-bye. Death sucks. Grief is good. It shows that you had empathy and love. And vicarious trauma is good because it shows that you're a good helper. So thank you for everything that you do. I hope you enjoyed season 2. I have learned so much from everyone that I've ever talked to on this podcast, on my TikTok, on my Instagram, so on and so forth. I thank you for giving me the space to continue these conversations and to remind you how important and special you are and how much I appreciate it. Bye bye.